Hello and welcome back to episode 14 of the PDPreps podcast. It is Tuesday, November 29th. The USA just beat Iran in the World Cup. That was pretty cool. But today we're talking about the end of football season in Sonoma County. It came to a pretty surprising sudden end this past weekend. We had three teams left. Windsor, Cardinal Newman, and St. Vincent all lost in their North Coast section championship games. A pretty interesting week, bringing a close to the high school football season here, and our coverage too. Also, again, we're back to also, we did not record a podcast last week, vacations, holidays, just kind of too hard to do that. But a lot of stuff, obviously, that we didn't talk about, 2 weeks ago after the NCS semifinal games. But if you're watching this, I'm sure you probably know what all happened. Again, we had three teams moving on out of the five that made it to the semifinals. Those three that I mentioned. So I was at the Windsor Newman games. We'll get to those in a second. Windsor lost a thriller 34-27 El Cerrito over in Division III, and then Newman was on the wrong end of a pretty tough game against Moraine Catholic, 48-22 over in NCS Division IV. But Keenan, you just keep having some of these games that you've covered this week. Like we're gonna talk about our games of the year candidates kind of at the end here, but I was going through some of them, and you've covered like 7-8 games that I think we could probably have as our game of the year. But this one that you had last week, one of the craziest games I think I've ever followed, I've ever seen. I'm sure, again, you were there in person. Division 7 NCS championship. Clear Lake stunned St. Vincent 56-55. What the hell happened in this game, dude?
Well, it was a great game if you are an offensive fan. Not so much if you're a fan of defense. Geez, how do I describe this? I mean, we've been we've been talking about St. Vincent and how we predicted they were going to roll through NCS, this entire year. And Clear Lake came into this game with 17, 19 players playing. And St. Vincent obviously had a bigger number of players. But this kind of had the makings of a defensive battle, I guess, if you will, but it turned out to be a NCL1 regular season game. 3 touchdowns were scored within the first minute and a half. Obviously Kai Hall had 2 rushing touchdowns to start St. Vincent. But then in the middle of those 2 touchdowns, Clear Lake's Jesse Hayes decided to take the kickoff return 81 yards to the house. So that kind of set the tone of what this game was going to be. The defenses had probably the worst day I've ever seen of any defense on both teams.
For a little context too, we were going through some stats just before this, but 56 points. So St. Vincent went 4-0 in the North Bay League NBL Redwood, and they allowed 62 points in those 4 games. And so 56 points is far and away the most points that they've allowed. It's
Easy.
Twice as many as their previous season high of 28 that they allowed against Montgomery. Just some context.
Easy. But yeah, it was neither defense could really do anything. Clear Lake had a fantastic game plan for St. Vincent, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They have some really good young guys on that team, and I'll get to them in a little bit. But it was just back and forth. I mean, St. Vincent ended up getting it went back and forth in the sense where St. Vincent would get a 2-score lead, and then Clear Lake would immediately get back into that 1 score. So Clear Lake was always in the game, without a doubt. And then Clear Lake got the ball at the start of the second half. They immediately scored, and I talked to Coach Corey after the end of the game, and he said that's kind of what flipped the switch. That's kind of what set our tone for the second half. They immediately scored. St. Vincent, Gus, was outscored 15-0 in the 4th quarter. That is not what you want to do, especially when it comes down to all the marbles here. It was going to come down to what team could get the final stop. It seemed like St. Vincent was going to get a stop, and then Clear Lake would always convert on 4th down. It did come down to Clear Lake, though, forcing a turnover on downs in in their own territory. They drove all the way to St. Vincent's 8-yard line. They were aided by a couple of huge fourth down conversions, and I mean like huge. Like these were pretty tough fourth down conversions to make. Um, they ended up converting like all of them. They were chewing all the clock possible. So they get down to the Mustangs 8. It was another fourth down on the Mustangs 8. They needed 2 yards. Jake Soderquist, I believe I pronounced his name right. If I didn't, I apologize. But their QB number 1, who's only a sophomore, I believe, took it to the left end for those 2 yards. Now at the 6-yard line, they could chew even more clock because they got a first down.
How much time was left at this point too? Because I saw that they scored with like 20 seconds left, but when did they start? I guess their final possession, their final drive.
I want to say it was with around 6 minutes left in the game.
Okay.
Just for context. Sorry, I know I'm going a little rant here, but
No,
it
I mean
was just
so much stuff happened. It's like
I
I know it's
know
hard.
so much stuff happened. And then obviously they chewed the clock down. 17 seconds left. Score a touchdown, right? That puts them one one score or no
1 point down. Yeah.
1 point down, excuse me. And for
Yeah.
context too, St. Vincent missed an extra point earlier in the game.
Mm.
So keep that in mind as well. I'm pretty sure Clear Lake did as well. But yeah, keep that in mind too when I'm explaining this. And then 2-point conversion going for it with like 17 seconds left, obviously on the clock. And I mean, they got it with a pass in the end zone, crossing right across the middle, placed it right where he needed to be. Perfect, like pitch perfect pass. 2-point conversion, 56-55, 17 seconds left. Now, the ensuing kickoff, right? St. Vincent, I believe, wastes 9 seconds. I think it was Kai Hall that wasted like 9 seconds on the kickoff return. Got it close to midfield or whatever. St. Vincent came out with about 9 seconds left. Quick play to the outside, got him a couple yards, got the clock stopped with about 6 seconds left, got him out of bounds, clock stopped. Final play of the game. Obviously, Clear Lake was in 3 deep. They were, they were waiting for the Hail Mary. Jarrett Bosarge, he dropped back, stepped up kind of into the pocket, and then kind of his arm was hit as he was throwing, or it was deflected or something off of his back. The defender came. The defender came around, big arm, just over the back, kind of blocked Bosarge's arm, and ball didn't travel anywhere, and that was all she wrote. Number 2, Clear Lake, man, stunned St. Vincent, 56-55. I mean, it was one of the craziest games I've ever seen. It was played at Rancho Cotati High School as well. One of the craziest games I've ever seen. But just running through some stats here. Jake Soderquist, 29 of 39 passing, 381 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 1 interception. That's passing. Hank Ollenberger, 25 carries, 85 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jesse Hayes, 9 catches, 143 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, plus that 81-yard kickoff return touchdown. Aiden Williamson, 6 catches for 93 yards. But even though St. Vincent lost, their stars showed out as they did. Kai Hall is now the single season rushing record in St. Vincent school history. He had 221 yards on 21 carries with 5 touchdowns rushing, which I mean we say it super casually, but that is an insane stat line. So he now holds a single season rushing mark, passing Chris Farina. His mark is now 1,956 yards on the season. Jarrett Bosarge joins the 1,000 club. He only needed 59 rushing yards to do it. He had 155 yards, so he definitely did that with a little room to spare. 14 carries, and Nathan Rooks had 2 rushing touchdowns. So yeah, offensive explosion, Gus. Clear Lake is moving on. They are now in Division 5, I believe, in the NorCals. They are moving on. So yeah, it's I mean, this just puts a kind of a cap, and of course we'll talk about your game in a sec, but this just puts a cap on an interesting, unpredictable, crazy football season by any stretch of the imagination.
No doubt. So yeah, St. Vincent again. This is probably, this is going to be one of their big what if seasons. I feel like, I mean, 12-0 going into this game. I think everyone had them penciled in, winning this, Division 7 section title. I think, we did too. And then to have it kind of have an undefeated season and probably again the best team that you've ever had in school history, come to an end like this. Just yeah. I mean, I don't know what was the post game scene like. I imagine it was pretty tough for St. Vincent, but I know
Yeah,
clearly
yeah. I
the
mean,
scene was ecstatic.
yeah, it was tough. There was, I mean, obviously the big thing you saw, Trent Herzog and Kai Hall hug for at least 5 minutes,
Mm.
at the end. Trent Herzog was very humble in defeat. Obviously he knew Clear Lake made the plays and they didn't. I mean, look, I mean, what we thought last year, right? You covered St. Vincent last year, and that team was pretty damn good. And then they
Yeah.
come out and do this. They're losing a lot. They are losing a lot though. They're losing obviously Big Cam, Vaughn, Kai, Jarrett, Nathan. That is a strong senior class that they're losing, Gus. To be, I mean, not to sugarcoat it at all. Um, but yeah, I mean the post scene it was tough to watch, man. But congrats to Clear Lake, man. I mean the
Yeah.
NCL one champs. They had some close games this year as well. But I mean Clear Lake did what they needed to do. They had a perfect game plan for St. Vincent, and down goes the Titans almost as if
Yeah.
you could say.
The
So
mighty
um,
Mustangs. Yeah.
yeah, the mighty Mustangs, but.
Crazy.
Then again, I mean, both teams are having a bunch of young studs come back.
Yep.
Well, without a doubt, I know all those Clear Lake playmakers are coming back too. And then on the St. Vincent side, you have guys like Nico Antonini. Jack Davis is coming back. You got all those guys up there. Robert Rooks too, Malcolm Rooks.
Mhm.
The other two of the Rooks trio,
Yep.
they're all coming back. So. Yeah, I mean, it'll be exciting to see what both teams do next year as well. But Gus, what a crazy game!
No doubt. Yeah, a couple last notes here before I move on. But yeah, Kai Hall, just what an amazing season. Max Preps has him at 1,957 yards for the year, 29 touchdowns, 11 games over 100 yards. I mean, he's going to go down as one of the best all time, best running backs all time in Sonoma County history. Obviously, he's with the Redwood Empire career rushing leader, career touchdown leader. I mean, this, just an outstanding career for Kai. Um, was very close to having a 2,000-yard season here too, for sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and like I said too, Jared again, great year for him, over almost 1,700 yards passing, 1,000 yards rushing, 13, 20, 29 overall touchdowns for him. So yeah, I mean they're going to be, big loss having those two guys, gone this year or gone next year, but. Like you said, still a lot of young talent, and I think what Trent's building over there too is this is going to be kind of where they get their first kind of test of like, what is this program kind of made of, losing kind of big caliber guys like that. So yeah, we'll see what they look like next year, but I expect them to kind of reload and bounce back. So
no doubt.
yeah, crazy game. Again, one of three championship games we had going on over the weekend. We'll move on to the other one that I was at on Saturday night. Marin Catholic over in Division 4. Marin Catholic top seed takes care of business, beats Cardinal Newman 48-22. Score makes it look a little closer than it was. Yeah, just kind of an ugly end of the season for Newman. They've had their offensive struggles at times this year, and those really kind of reared their ugly head again this year against a really, really good Marin Catholic team. That's kind of like how I want to approach this is looking at Marin Catholic as kind of the top, caliber team that they are.
Right.
Cal Preps has ranked them consistently in like the top 5 in all of the North Coast section. I think they're even like number 3 right now in all the NCS. That's all across all divisions, like De La Salle, Pittsburgh, all those teams are up there too. But Marin Catholic has all season been like in that top 5, top 3 conversation. So they're as legit as it comes. But I mean, this one again, it was Marin Catholic kind of ran away with it in the third quarter, but up until halftime, it was actually a relatively close game. I want to say. I mean, like it was MC kind of the big knock, I guess on Marin Catholic this year is it's a go. Maybe they haven't played a lot of great caliber opponents, and they were 12-0 going into this game, and yeah, they kind of struggled the week before against Del Norte, and it was like, hey, maybe there is a little wiggle room here. Maybe if Newman plays the kind of defensive grinded out game that they did against Acalanes, the week before in the semifinals, and they're really, great win that 17-14, just defensive grinded out game. I'm like, if they could play that same kind of game against Marin Catholic and slow down that, their offense, and maybe get a couple, get a few, defensive touchdowns or a couple turnovers and like make it a close game, maybe they'd have a chance. And for the first half, it kind of looked like that a little bit. It was 7-0 or 7-7 early in the first or late in the first quarter. Marin Catholic scored late in the first, and then Santino Acevedo returned the ensuing kickoff 91 yards for a touchdown. So all of a sudden it was like 7-7, and it's like, all right, we kind of got a game here. Newman then forces a 3-and-out, get the ball back, and it's like, oh, hey, here we go. And I will say in the first quarter or first half too, like Newman's defense was really putting the pressure on Marin Catholic quarterback Joey Cook. Jesse Myers had 2 sacks for the game. I think they had Newman had 3 sacks total, and we're really kind of getting a lot of pressure on him. So defense is playing great. And then things kind of started to falter, I guess. There was Newman gets the ball back after forcing a punt, and then they start kind of going backwards, a few negative plays. And then they have to punt, and there was a low snap. Acevedo kind of dropped down, stooped down to get it. The ref ruled that he kneed down, and unfortunately that was at Colonel Newman's 5-yard line. And then Marin Catholic scores in the very next play to make it 14-7. And then Marin Catholic gets one more score just before halftime on just a really kind of quick, lightning fast scoring drive, and all of a sudden it's 20-7 at halftime. But again, it's like I think Marin Catholic got its first touchdown off of an interception, and then again that second one off of basically what was another turnover on Acevedo, deep kneel down. So it's like 2 plays all of a sudden off of two basically turnover plays, lead to touchdowns, and a couple things go the other way, and it's Newman's game, or Newman's still in the game at least. But yeah, at halftime it was like, MC's defense has been really good this year, and kind of the same thing. And like we said too, Newman's offense is kind of not, it struggled at times. Kind of happened again on this game. At halftime they had 9 yards of total offense. Not great. And they also only had 1 first down. But again, their defense was kind of keeping them in it. A couple things go differently. You have a different ball game. Then open up the second half. Charles Williams, who's their star running back, he has offers from San Jose State and Oregon State. We're not going to talk about the Oregon State-Oregon game, Keenan. I'm sorry. We're going to move on quickly. We're going to move on quickly. He returns the opening second half kickoff for an 85-yard touchdown. All of a sudden, it's 27-7, and the wheels kind of start to fall off. Marin Catholic then picks Newman on the next drive. They need 3. They score 3 plays later. Newman then goes 3-and-out. Marin Catholic scores 3 plays later. Newman throws another interception. Marin Catholic scores 3 plays later. So literally, it from a 20-7 game at halftime, where there were a few plays that could have made it a little closer. Literally, it took Marin Catholic 9 offensive plays to jump out to a 48-7 lead with about 4.5 to go in the third, and that's pretty much the ball game right there. So. And then again, some window dressing at the end. MC puts their subs in, about then, and Newman gets a couple scores late, but to make it look a little closer than it was. But yeah, I mean, again, this is a Marin Catholic team that they won NCS last year. They also beat Newman in kind of a similar fashion. They went on to win a state title. Like, this is just a well-oiled machine down there, over in in Kentfield. So. Just not much you can do sometimes when you play a team that's just, having one of these years and has this kind of talent. So, a tough end of the year for Marin Catholic or for Newman. Sorry. But yeah, I will say, like, obviously, they're losing Santino Acevedo. That's going to be a big loss. They're losing, their star, wide receiver, Zach Kelly. They're losing, specialist Nicky Air. But like head coach Richard Sanchez has been saying all year, they're very young. They have a lot of guys coming back this year. They had a lot of juniors, a lot of sophomores contributing this year on this team. So guys like Kaide Steverson are back next year. Matthew Hilden, maybe he'll be back at quarterback. Maybe they'll find another guy to kind of step up, put him back at the line. Guys like Jesse Myers, who's a sophomore this year, he's going to be a problem next year. For offenses as a defensive lineman. Jonah Bertoli had a couple really nice games, freshman wide receiver for them. Zach Holman had some nice games. Jamari Gentry could be pretty good next year as well. Jasper Kemp on the defensive end. So, like, there are a lot of guys that Newman has, can look at going in the next year, saying, all right, we're losing some big pieces, but I think there's a lot to build on there for the Cardinals. So tough end to them, but it does seem like they'll be back kind of in that conversation of one of the best teams, obviously, in the county next year. But I don't know, Keenan, for you, this is kind of your first year kind of covering Newman. I don't know, what do you kind of see as kind of some of their outlook for the future too?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. It was an interesting year for Newman, considering they had to face some adversity very early on with Santino and that ankle injury,
Yeah,
and they definitely could have gotten a better record, especially in the preseason reign of things. But I think they responded really well. I think their guys really stepped up when they needed to. I think with Marine Catholic just looking into this game, they needed their defense to show up and they needed their
yeah,
offense to play like they did against Petaluma, where they put up like 49, 48, 49 points.
yeah.
Obviously very tough to do against Marine Catholic, who for Northern California's sake, the program is, I mean, it's almost like I'm not obviously it's not the same as like Mater Dei or St. John Bosco, but it's for NorCal's sake that the program
Year in,
is
year out,
it,
there's consistently good.
yes,
Exactly. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Um, but I mean, for all that Newman's been through, I mean, I think they had a good season. I do think that with their youth, they're coming back next year. I think Zach Holman's going to be a great replacement for Santino, especially in that middle linebacker spot. I mean, Kaze, we saw how Kaze's been running the ball this year,
Yeah.
dude. He is tough as nails, that kid.
Yeah.
Um, so I think overall it was obviously probably not what Newman really wanted or expected out of their season, but with what they had going for them and the adversity they faced, I think it turned out as well as it could. An NCS title game in a tough Division 4
Right.
is nothing to
Totally.
scoff at.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I wish they came back in against Marine Catholic like Oregon State did against Oregon,
I don't know why.
but it just didn't happen. I think 21 points is doable, especially when you're down 31-10, but
Should never have
maybe
brought this
48
up. I
40
should never have brought this up. I don't know
40
why I mentioned that.
7. Oh, go Beavs,
Never have
baby.
brought this up. All right, moving
Dan
on. Moving
Dan
on. El
Dan Dan
Cerrito,
Lanning.
Windsor.
Dan Lanning
El
going for it on
Cerrito.
fourth down.
El
Oh my
Cerrito,
god.
Windsor. We're moving on. We're moving on. We're moving on.
Go Beavs,
We're
Beaver
moving
State, not the
on.
Dutch
We're moving
State.
on. We're moving on. All right, El Cerrito, Windsor. Now, we're gonna cut all that and post. I'm sure, Keenan. Right? Thank you.
Oh, not at all.
So,
It's staying in there, buddy.
so
El Cerrito Windsor. This
yeah,
this was a good game though, Gus, to be fair.
yes, it was. We're moving on. All right. Division 3, El
He's
Cerrito.
triggered.
I literally I was doing our pregame notes here. I'm like, do I mention that Charles Williams has an offer from Oregon State? Because I knew that that it would set this whole conversation off, and I am regretting that choice to mention that. But we're moving on. We're moving on. El Cerrito 34, Windsor 27 in the NCS division. 3 title game. This was on Friday night. This was the first of 2 games I covered this weekend. This was a very interesting game. Rematch of the NCS semis last year. Kind of a flipping of the script in this one. Last year, Windsor went up really big in the third quarter, and then all of a sudden, El Cerrito stormed back. They made it a 1-point game late, and then Windsor had to get a couple stops, and it was very dramatic from what was a kind of a blowout. Well, like I said, script kind of flipped this. In this match at this time around. Coming into the game, El Cerrito was 12-0. They had allowed 62 points all season. One of the best defenses in all the North Coast section, if not all of Northern California. And this was going to be a huge test for Windsor. El Cerrito was stacked with some, with future Division 1 athletes. They have, I think they have a guy committed to Washington State. They have a guy with an offer from San Jose State. They have a couple other 2 and 3-star guys in their defense who are probably going to be playing on Saturdays pretty soon. Definitely a big test coming up for Windsor in this one. And for early on, it kind of looked like El Cerrito was going to run away with it. El Cerrito went up 7-0 late in the first. Windsor comes right back, scores a quick touchdown, 7-6. El Cerrito immediately right back, 54-yard touchdown score for Tony McAdoo. He had something like 280 yards. rushing on the night, or for the game, something like 3 touchdowns too. That was the first of one of two 50-yard touchdowns he had. El Cerrito comes back, gets the ball back on an interception, and then they converted it again a few plays later, make it 26. This was kind of late in the second quarter, and then they actually get another interception, and they return it for a touchdown, like a 60-yard touchdown, and then
these
it's called
boys are
back.
good, man.
It's crazy, man. I mean, yeah, the speed that those guys had on defense and offense, it was like watching like a JUCO team, honestly, like with kind of some of the athletes that they had. But
wait, real quick for context, I saw your tweets. What was happening with Hayden Anderson in the first half?
Great point. I forgot to mention that. So first half, Hayden Anderson, the star sophomore wide receiver for Windsor, basically didn't play. He was sick, throwing up like all pregame. He was hunched over a trash can. He looked like white as a sheet. He was not having a good time. Food poisoning. Something was going on that he ate. Didn't really warm up with the team pregame, and then didn't play at all in the first quarter, and then came in for a couple of series in the second quarter. And he got hit. He got hit hard a few times. It was very slow to get up. You could tell he was not even close to 100%. Windsor went into the half. I can speak. Trailing 27-6. So El Cerrito closed out the second quarter with 2 interceptions, both of which they converted for touchdowns. And kind of like the Newman game too, where it was kind of close, and then all of a sudden a huge barrage blows it open. Kind of the same thing in this one. El Cerrito, couple turnovers, few touchdowns, and it's from 14-6 it goes to 27-6 at halftime. So halftime, Hayden Anderson, whatever he did in the locker room was enough to kind of get him going again. He plays almost the entire. He basically plays the entire second half, and really puts a stamp on this game. But before he kind of makes his impact felt, El Cerrito, another touchdown to open up the third quarter. All of a sudden, it's 34-6. I want to say, 34-6. And honestly, I'm thinking, all right, running clock here pretty soon. Like, this is El Cerrito just is the better team tonight. And then all of a sudden, the comeback begins. The Windsor starts clawing away. They open it up with a 12-play touchdown drive. Hayden Anderson punches it in from close range, 34-13. This is about 5.5 left in the third. Windsor gets a huge stop, and then Judson Anderson hits Hayden for a 31-yard touchdown. 34-20. This is just early in the fourth quarter, like first play of the fourth quarter. This is Judson hits him, so all of a sudden 2-score game. El Cerrito comes back down. They get into Windsor's red zone. Fourth down, Gunnar Erickson comes up with a huge interception at the goal line with about 7 minutes left. Windsor puts together probably its best drive to go like 9 yards, 14 yards, 25 yards. All of a sudden, they're all the way deep into El Cerrito territory. And then Max McFerrin takes a nice run, gets like a 15-16 yard, long gain, fumble. El Cerrito gets it back at about their 25-yard line with something like 5 minutes left. And at this point, you're kind of thinking, all right, that's probably it. Just El Cerrito gets a few first downs here and that, and that's the game. Well, Windsor defense coming up clutch again. They get another stop. Get the ball back with about 2 minutes, or they get the ball back with something like 3.5 minutes left. And then they come back down and they score really quickly again. This time Judson hits McFerrin for a 13-yard touchdown, and it's all of a sudden.
McFerrin's had a great year, by the way.
Yes. Anyway. I think he made first team all league for as a running back too. For the NBL. So, and we'll have those out later this week. Just the full list. But anyway, so McFerrin's touchdown, 34-27 with 2 minutes left, and all of a sudden, from 34-6 to 34-27. And again, this is against an El Cerrito team that the most points they've allowed in a game all season is 13. And they all of a sudden, Windsor all of a sudden gets 21 on them over like a 15-minute stretch, just like really inspired play from the Jaguars. So 34-27, and onside kick coming, perfectly executed onside kick. Who comes up with it but Hayden Anderson, leaping high, grabbing the ball out of the air. Just one of the best plays I've seen all season. And all Windsor has life. I mean, pandemonium in the stadium, crowds going crazy. El Cerrito's defense kind of pushes the Jaguars back a little bit, and then Judson Anderson is forced to air it out. and it's picked off for the third time by El Cerrito. Kamani Jackson comes up with the pick. I think he's one of their 2 or 3 star recruits on the outside. So yeah, 4 turnovers that El Cerrito forces on the night. The last one, comeback stops dead in its tracks. But it was, again, like I said too, from a 34-6 game to a 34-27, and the way that Windsor clawed their way back, like, head coach DJ Sexton after the game was just he's like, I'm like so proud of these guys like tonight, after this game, after the season, like to do what we just did against that team. Like he's like, I don't think anyone else in our area could have done that. And honestly, I believe him. I mean, like, I man, I mean, but seeing games like El Cerrito versus Rancho, God, that would be a blast too. I mean, this D1 prospects everywhere in that game. But
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah, I mean, it was a crazy game. It turned out to be, again, it was looking like kind of a laugher, and then all of a sudden it was very dramatic. But again, a very very
It reminds me
strong.
of another game that happened on
I
Saturday.
don't know what you're talking about. Very strong end of the year for Windsor. Like we've said too, I think Windsor probably has the brightest future out of any of our local teams. Every single one of their skill guys are back next year. Judson's back, Hayden Anderson's back, Wyatt Morris is back, Gunnar Erickson is back, Max McFerrin is back. All of these skill guys are back. They're going to lose quite a bit on their line, but that coaching staff just has them absolutely primed and ready for another deep run, next year. So I fully expect them to be back. Yeah, doing these same kind of things next year. But yeah, I mean, again, outscore a team like El Cerrito in the middle of its best season, basically in school history, outscore them 21-6 in the second half, 400 yards of offense in the game. Just absolutely, yeah, crazy game. Awesome showing for Windsor despite a loss. But yeah, Windsor I feel like Windsor has said this, and I feel like St. Vincent said the same thing, but like, we'll be back. Like, this is not the last time that we're going to see them at this point. So, yeah. And again, with that, that's how it ended. That's how football came to a close this year in Sonoma County. So, I don't think any week was boring. I think there were a few weeks that we thought were going to maybe not have a great slate of games, and
they ended up being the best.
something popped off like crazy. So yeah, I mean, really just an awesome football season. And yeah, Keenan, I guess we'll get into kind of more of our kind of end of season wraps here in a bit, but I guess, yeah, we'll take a look at our final rankings for the year. So we did pause these.
Do it.
So we did pause these going into the postseason, and we're going to kind of see how everything played out and then bring them back. So, yeah, final rankings don't look a whole lot from how our rankings looked going in. But yeah, I think this is a pretty accurate representation of where we're at. But Windsor at 1, Rancho Cotati at 2, Newman at 3, St. Vincent at 4, Annalee at 5. Annalee jumps back in. They switched spots with Casa Grande. They were one of the deepest. Actually, yeah, I mean, those were the final 5 teams that we had playing. Annalee made the semifinals of the NCAA Division 5 playoffs. Lost to Miramonte a couple weeks ago. So yeah, that's how it ends. 4 teams from the NBL Oak, and the best team from the NBL Redwood. So it yeah. And again, too, this is kind of how our rankings have looked pretty much all season. I mean, again, it's those 4 teams have kind of been there the entire time, and then it's just been kind of a bit of a revolving door at 5. But I don't know. What do you think? This is kind of final rankings. Any thoughts on this? Is kind of what we've had all year.
Yeah. I mean, I think it makes sense considering that Annalee made it the deepest outside of the top 4. Obviously, we're gonna do these again next year, so there's still a lot of what ifs at the end of the season. What if St. Vincent played Windsor? What if St. Vincent played all that fun stuff. But yeah, I think this is completely fair. I think this ends on a good note with our rankings. I think Windsor. I think, yeah. What am I trying to say here? I was going to say once Windsor beat Rancho, then they kind of locked up that top spot for the rest of the season. But then again, they almost lost to Newman. So I mean, things have. Keep in mind that these last couple weeks have just been super interesting. So things could have changed rapidly. But yeah, I think it was. I think that's pretty good. Casa Grande. I mean, I think Petaluma gets a little. I think Petaluma should get a little bit more recognition considering the season they had. They were 7-1. Unfortunately, they lost. Unfortunately, they lost the last two games of the regular season. So they gave up that VVAL title. Had probably one of their best offensive performances against a Cardinal Newman defense who was very tough, very stout. Um, so yeah, it was. I think that's a great. I think that's a great ending to our rankings. But with that being said, let's kind of move on to finish a couple things out here. We're going to do our final records. Um, Gus, you were 1-2 last week. I was 2-1. There was only 3 games to really choose from. Actually, 4 games. I should be 3-1 because Oregon State over Oregon. But actually 4-1 because Dan Lanning doesn't know how to go for it on fourth down. But final overall records, Gus, you just missed the 100 win mark. You're 99-38. I finished 96-41. I think a lot better than I thought I was going to do, to be fair. But obviously, we both chose El Cerrito. We got that. We were split on the Newman Marin Catholic. Gus, you went with Cardinal Newman. Gus with the bold play at the end of the year. Usually that's my move, but I guess you decided to go with the Bolton Newman there. So you lost that, and then we both lost. We both lost Saint Vincent. Um, Obviously in that close game. But yeah, I mean but before we finally wrap it up, guys, I do want to talk about some of the games of the contenders for the games of the year here. And we had a lot. We had some that we covered. We had some that we didn't cover. For me personally, obviously, I have the Annalee Petaluma, 50-49 shootout in Sebastopol. It was super entertaining, came down to 2-point conversion. Um, that was just one of the craziest games I've ever seen. The Egg Bowl, obviously, this year, where, it was a double pass, ended up helping Casa Grande, and then a two-point conversion ended up putting Casa Grande over Petaluma in the always entertaining Egg Bowl. Um, Let me see. Campo Lindo Rancho obviously was very entertaining. And then I also want to talk Clear Lake, St. Vincent as well. And then also I think one that deserves mention that isn't on here is Windsor Rancho.
Yeah, good call.
Windsor Rancho as well. I think that one gets on there. So, good job. Good job, Petaluma. Good for having for
Petaluma's in here
having
a lot. Petaluma's in here a lot.
Petaluma's in here a lot. Rancho's in here a lot. Clear Lake St. Vincent, obviously, that last game has got to be up there as well. But Gus, any games that you can really think of based on your end that you went to cover, and we'll do the ones that we didn't cover in a
Well,
bit.
well, it's just funny because like again, like I said at the top, I so out of these whatever 6 games that we just mentioned, or we have so 6, 7 games, I guess, including the Windsor Rancher game. Out of those games, you covered 5 of them. So you
uh,
definitely got your money's worth as far as game coverage this year. Yeah, no, I mean a couple that we didn't mention. Yeah, 7 now, I guess, that we had on the games that we covered for as far as games of the year. But I covered the Cloverdale Willits double overtime thriller, kind of in week 6, the midway point. Freshman quarterback, Basic Catarelli, had 5 touchdowns. He had 2 in overtime, and he had a 2-point conversion, game-winning touchdown too. So that was a crazy game. I think that was the first overtime game that I've covered actually in high school. So that was pretty entertaining. And then obviously, the one I think a lot of people will point at too is the Windsor Newman game in week 11. Controversial, not controversial. I've heard both sides. Whatever. That's my final take on it. It was a crazy game. It was a crazy game. Jaguars win on a walk-off touchdown with no time remaining to beat Cardinal Newman for the first time in school history and to win their first league title in like 10 years. So that was a crazy game. But then, yeah, a couple more that we didn't cover that I was kind of going back and I'm like, all right, there were definitely some other really exciting games. But yeah, Petaluma and Maria Carrillo, and shoot, Annalee too, I guess, have both kind of been in a lot of these close games
Absolutely.
that kind of come down to the wire. And unfortunately for Maria Carrillo, they came out on the wrong side of 2 of them. That was a pretty tough way to begin their season. But yeah, I mean, the week 1 game, Casa Grande, beat Maria Carrillo 28-21. Casa won on a last minute 89-yard touchdown pass, from Wyatt Abramson to Clint Ray with like 126 left. They had to clutch that one out. Week 3, Petaluma beat Marie Carrillo in the same fashion. Asher Levi hit Dawson Shaw with 2.5 seconds left to win by 1 point. And then Petaluma again, week 6, they beat Vintage. First, huge showdown. And the Trojans just grinded out their biggest win in the Rick Christ era. Week 11, another game that we didn't cover was the Annalee Montgomery game. 50-49, another crazy shootout.
Yep.
Annalee rallied from 13 down in the last 4 minutes. Sammy Long had a touchdown with about a minute 30 left, and that finished it off. And then a game that we also didn't cover, a game that we didn't cover in the pod or actually in person was the NCS semifinal game, Cardinal Newman versus Acalanes. We talked about that a little bit earlier. But Newman clutched it out 17-14. Last second field goal by sophomore kicker Patrick Gardner wins the game for Cardinal Newman. They got a pick 6 early on and a kind of a fumble scoop and score to lead 14-0. Acalanes clawed back, and then Newman clutched it out with one final pick and then Gardner's game-winning field goal. So we might. I think that we might put this out as a poll. I don't hold me to that.
I was thinking that too. I think that'd be pretty. I think we do one that we didn't cover and then one that we did cover. I think.
Or honestly, we just do. We just throw all these out there at once.
And that works too.
And kind of see where people are split. I mean, I think that there are a ton of great deserving candidates here. It was a pretty crazy season, I will say. I don't honestly. I don't think we definitely didn't do as comprehensive coverage on football like this last year. So I don't know if we had. I think we might have had a bunch of crazy games too, but I can't remember there being this many crazy games last year. So this year for sure delivered the drama, thrillers left and right. It was pretty nuts. But Keenan, this was wrapping up your first football season here in Sonoma County. I don't know, man. What did you think overall? What were your I guess big general thoughts, takeaways from this whole year?
Yeah, great year. Great year for high school football. I mean, I think the last couple of years, the high school sports scene across the country has become so unpredictable and so much more exciting. Because I think you see a lot more programs and teams getting a lot better and becoming a lot more competitive. And that's across all sports as well.
Mm-hmm.
I was just in Ohio for the past couple of years, and I was like, high school football out there is no joke, right? It's absolutely blood. So I was very interested to see, because I grew up in Mill Valley, so I went to high school in the city. But I saw a lot of MCAL games growing up. So I was never really well versed in Sonoma County football. So this was kind of my first kind of taste of it to see what it was like, and it was fantastic, man. It was amazing. Let me tell you, just the talent we had this year and the talent that are coming back for next year, just I know it just ended, but it's like your mouth is almost watering, because I know those football coaches are always like, man, I just want to get it rolling. You got guys like Hayden Anderson coming back, Jacob Pruitt, and Ice Walker. All these big guns are coming back, D1 talent, and I think Gus, I mean, you've grown up in Sonoma County, like you're a Healdsburg guy. I don't know if there's been this much D1 talent in Sonoma County football in a while.
There's been some good talent in the past for sure. Like a guy like Zion Nunnally, who's a Cardinal Newman guy. He's getting some playing time for Washington State right now. There are a couple of those guys too from those Newman championship teams who are all who are playing. Who are playing now. I know some guys from like Rancho Cotati, a couple of Windsor kids too. Even went to some good to some top tier programs as well. But the caliber that we have right now, as far as young talent too, guys like Hayden, guys like Jacob coming back to, for his senior year. And then even this year too, guys like Santino, who, man, I'm just kind of surprised he hasn't gotten more interest from college, because that guys can absolutely play at the next level, without a doubt. Cy Vajrawala, obviously, Cal, guys going to Cal, you mentioned, Anais Walker, who's, 3-star prospect. He has offers from, a number of Division I colleges too, and then all the guys over at St. Vincent. Kai Hall is going to be playing, on Saturdays here pretty soon. He just got an offer from the University of San Diego today. Same thing with Cam Vaughn.
Vaughn too.
Yeah, exactly. So, I also haven't been obviously covering or paying attention as closely to all of the talent that we have in Sonoma County. At least since I got here, it's kind of more like passive observing from afar the last couple of years until I got here. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I like the number of guys that are going to be playing next year. And honestly, even in the next couple of years in college, yeah, I can't remember a time where there's been this many. So yeah, we're kind of in a great boom right now. It feels like for high school football in Sonoma County.
Yeah. Well, I also wanted to ask you too. I mean, you asked me about like my first season, but obviously you kind of did this on your own last year. So,
Mhm.
in terms of the coverage we were able to do together, along obviously with our director Corey Young, all of our photographers, everything like that. Just what were your kind of key takeaways from this season? Just being able to do what it seems like being able to do
Yeah.
more coverage on the football scene.
There's always stuff that we want to be able to do that, just time constraints, covering other sports just doesn't always allow. So, but I mean, again, I think that the steps that we took this year with our football coverage has been, awesome. Doing the podcast, doing the 100-yard walks,
Agreed.
doing more game coverage, all stuff that I think, again, being a local guy too, it's like I take a lot of pride in, this being, where I grew up, and these are the schools that I played against, and I know, people who went to these schools, and so there's some pride in like covering, your hometown, so, or your where you grew up. So I definitely think that we've made some really awesome strides, and I think that there's a lot more that we can do, and I think that we should try to do. So I'm hoping that we can do more going into the future. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I would love to get more freelancers on board, just to kind of be able to go out and get some, live coverage of more games. I'm kind of rattling off all these games of the year that we didn't cover, and it's like it would have been great to, possibly have some people at those games. So if you're listening to this and you're interested, or anybody who's interested in sports writing,
Hit
have
us
them,
up.
have them reach out to us, please, because we definitely need the help. But no, I think that what we did this year was awesome. I like to, I love doing this pod with you. I think the 100-yard walks have been really good. I know that when I was going to high school and like, reading the PD and stuff, I would love to kind of, to see stats and whatever. And I'd love to try to get some more comprehensive stats going on. That's just a little too much for us to do as a two-man staff, or 2.5 or 3-man staff, I guess, right now. But especially covering all the schools that we have to. And I would like to do more small school coverage. That's just really hard to do as well, doing more Lake County, Mendocino stuff. But I think that what we're able to kind of do now, and I think you and I have both heard this too from the from the coaches and the football community, is they're really appreciating kind of what we're doing, and kind of where how we've tried to kind of get the PD back to where it was kind of pre-pandemic, because we obviously didn't have a sports writer during most of pretty much all of 2020, and then I came in like late 2021 as like kind of the first piece to I guess build it back. So people are I guess really appreciative of what we're doing, and I think that's that's a good sign that we're doing the right things. So um yeah, I mean, it's been great. I mean, I think that, again, like like you kind of said too, that high school football, I can't imagine a time when it's been better or more exciting. And again, I'm sure it has been in years past, but just since I've been paying attention to it, this was one of the craziest years that I've been a part of. I mean, 3 teams going to the NCAA championship games for the first time, for back-to-back years too. Same 3 teams. That was one thing we didn't mention. St. Vincent, Newman, and Windsor were all in their same division championship games last year. So that was really cool to see some continuity with some good programs. Obviously we've had some state champions in the past, and I think we're probably pretty close to getting there again too, just because with some of the talent that we have here. So yeah, I don't really know what my main takeaway is. I mean, I'm just kind of rambling here, but
You have
it's
a
it's
lot.
it's yeah, no, I mean, it's I could talk about high school football and high school sports in Sonoma County forever. And it's just fun to do this, and it's fun that we have the opportunity to do it as well. So, and again, a lot of that too is because of the readers and the viewers and the listeners. So, if you're still here at this point, listening to me ramble, thank you, because you're why I'm able to do this. So,
Listen to me. Um, yeah, I mean, overall it was a great year, but there's still some other stuff to go through. Gus, you had a very busy weekend, or these past couple weekends actually. You've been very busy. You were at the cross country state championships. Let us know what the hell happened at the state championships. Some good news, right?
yeah, it was that was my Friday, or my week, I guess, featured Thursday I was in Elk Grove for Thanksgiving, and I drove out to Benicia High School on Friday night to cover the Windsor game. And then drove from Benicia to Fresno on Friday night to cover the cross country championships, the state championships on Saturday morning. Did that and then came back and covered the noon game on Saturday night. So yes, it was a long weekend, long week on the road for me. But yeah, cross country, no surprise here really, but Hannah Thompson, the Montgomery sophomore phenom, repeats as the Division III champ. So she's incredible. On pace to already be one of the best, female cross country runners that we've ever seen in Sonoma County. She's, she now has 3 state titles. She obviously won one last year in cross country, won the same thing this year. And then she also won the 3,200 state title in track and field. So she's going for that again. She'll be in the hunt for sure again, for a state title in track and field in the spring. But she is just absolutely phenomenal. Someone to keep an eye on for sure going forward in the next couple of years. But yeah, she repeated as the Division III state champion, won by like over 30 seconds. She didn't even run her best race either on that course. She was kind of sick that week, but just gutted it out, won pretty handily. 3rd fastest time out of all divisions, which is something like almost 1,000 girl runners were there. She had the 3rd fastest time in the entire state, which is crazy. So just a casual effort for Hannah. But then, yeah, a couple of other people to shout out. Montgomery senior Jude DeVries finished, I believe it was 4th place in the Division III race. He ran a PR. He just ran his butt off in that race. 15:14, I think his time was. Like, just, yeah, absolutely gutted it out. One of the best races. Like he said, it was the best race of his high school career. So what a way to go out for him. And then, yeah, Tiernan Colby over in Division 5, senior from Sonoma Academy. He's been him and Jude have been 2 of the top, basically the 2 top fastest boys runners in the entire county this year. And yeah, Colby, I believe he finished 6th in Division 5. I know he was trying to win that. He wasn't, kind of disappointed in his race, but I mean, shoot, a 6th place finish at state. Especially because he finished 34th last year in the same race, and so to 28 place improvement, and still a top 10 finish for your senior year. Yeah, outstanding effort for those 2 guys to finish out. And then, yeah, a couple other team things too, but Monty girls finished 7th overall in Division III. That's their first top 10 finish, their first top 10 finish, I believe, since like 2003 when they finished 3rd or 2nd, something like that. So great year for them, and they have, again, led by Hannah. They also have girls like Amory Lacefield, Celia Kittlestrom. Those are both seniors as well. They all, I believe they fit. That was like all 3 of them, I think, finished. I mean, Hannah won. I think Celia finished like 16th, and I think Amory finished something like mid-20s or 30s. So all 3 of those girls are going to be a problem for other teams coming up next year. But but then also Maria Carrillo, boys and girls, each finished, I believe, in the top 15, 16. So they had another good season. But yeah, Thompson, everyone's season is finished. Cross country and football were the last 2 the last 2 fall sports going on at this point of the year. But Hannah's season actually continues. She has the Nike Cross Nationals coming up this Saturday. She's racing at 9 a.m. Up in Portland, I believe it is, with some of the against some of the top cross country runners in the entire country. So forgot how she placed last year, but this is kind of what she wants to do in the off season for her. She's run so many races this year by herself that she hasn't really, like, she's so far ahead of like the 2nd place person. She hasn't been able to really kind of push herself. And that's been kind of it's a mentally hard thing to do when you're running so far ahead of the pack. So she'll get a chance here to kind of, to put herself against, some of the best runners, in the country, see where she stacks up. And I imagine she'll place pretty well because she's damn fast. So, anyway, fall sports coming to an end here. And yeah, I think we're just going to transition right into winter sports here. I believe we're going to try to keep this podcast going. We're going to, obviously, again, we have winter sports, we have basketball kind of getting into full swing this week. We're going to have some more coverage of that. We have a couple tournaments coming up this weekend. And then, soccer and wrestling too are starting to get underway. So I don't, again, this podcast has kind of been mostly about football. So we're going to maybe have to kind of reimagine, I guess, kind of the format of it a bit with, with doing some other sports and focusing on, boys and girls, obviously, and, basketball and soccer. So yeah, we're not really sure what this will look like here in the next couple of weeks, but we'll figure it out. Right? We'll figure it out.
Sure,
we'll figure it out.
It's going to be okay. We'll
Exactly.
be all right. We're fine. Exactly. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Um, yeah, but whatever happens, we'll definitely keep you guys updated because I know some of you guys love the podcast. We didn't have one last week, obviously because of logistical issues. I was in Ohio, so didn't want to didn't want to do it.
It was all Keenan's fault. It was all Keenan's fault.
Hey, luckily I got out of there before Ohio State and Michigan happened. That was a tough one
Careful. Careful.
I know, right? I know that was a tough one for all the Buckeye fans for sure. Um, so but yeah, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this thing goes. You know, maybe we do a play on the 100-yard walks for other sports. You know, like basketball, like a full court walk. I don't know. Just we have many different options at play heading into the winter season. Um, but yeah, so we'll just keep on moving, man. The school year just keeps on going. We'll definitely have some more things. Gus, I know you put some tweets out about some basketball tournaments that are happening this weekend too. So we're already kind of on that um, end of that as well. But um, yeah, I mean, well, here we
Rolling
are
right
again.
along.
What?
Rolling right along. Right into
Rolling
the next sport.
right into the next sport. It never ends. It never ends. But yeah, other than that, I think that's kind of everything that we need to talk about.
Yep.
Gus, I don't think we have anything else. Um, this was the 14th episode of the podcast so far. So we've done this for 14 weeks, and it's been pretty sweet, pretty cool 14 weeks. We've had some fun doing this, and we're looking to keep it going. So, with that being said, we appreciate you guys so much for watching, listening, however you take this podcast in. It's amazing the support we get. We don't really expect that kind of support, but we get it anyways. So we appreciate all of you listeners slash viewers out there. And without further ado. We'll see you guys on the next episode.